It's 1:30 CST on the 5th of September 2025. In the South China Sea, about 150 nautical miles west of Luzon, the USS Ronald Reagan plows through black water under a moonless sky. The bridge is bright, tense. Scope operators trade quick glances. Unknown tracks flower across their screens in tight swarms, then split, merge, and sprint. Alarms erupt. Sailors snap to general quarters. Hatches slam. Boots hammer steel decks. On the flight deck, yellow shirts wave, engines whine, and the first Super Hornets claw into the night. Outside the carrier's skin, flashes glint low on the horizon. Something is inbound and closing fast. A data window spasms, then freezes, then returns with new contacts that don't quite make sense. The Aegis Watch calls out bearings. Numbers disagree. A petty officer swears the sea is empty, yet the radar insists it is crowded. For a long half-minute, nobody can tell which blips are real and which are ghosts, and the decision that follows might decide whether this ship survives or sinks. The South China Sea isn't empty blue on a map, it's a working highway. Tankers move oil and gas. Freighters haul chips, phones, grain, medicine. Those ships keep lights on in Manila, factories running in Shenzhen, and shelves stocked in San Diego. To keep that flow safe, the USS Ronald Reagan and her escorts sweep this corridor like a moving guard. Their wake says the sea stays open for everyone. That promise deters pirates and bullies. It also paints a target. Across the horizon, the People's Liberation Army Navy presses closer each season. Type 055 and 52D destroyers trail convoys. Frigates hug fishing fleets. Y-9 electronic warfare planes sniff for gaps. J-20 fighters test Allied airspace, then vanish. The method is steady pressure until U.S. presence feels costly and uncertain. Tonight, that pressure adds a sharper edge. A cyber team reaches inside Allied networks to blind sensors and twist data. If they can make a carrier group doubt its own picture, they don't need to fire first. Doubt does the job. For the crew, the stakes are human before strategic. If defense fails, sailors die. If the Reagan is damaged or forced back, allies wonder who rules these waters. Insurance jumps. Shippers reroute. Assembly lines pause for parts that never arrive. Stores notice, then families do. For Washington, the question is credibility. Can America still keep lanes open under stress? The objective is simple. Survive, hold the corridor, and prove the picture can be cleaned faster than the enemy can corrupt it. That means finding real tracks, deleting ghosts, and restoring trust while jets stay airborne and escorts lock shields. If you think the US must hold this line tonight, press 1" the comments. If you believe China is seizing the initiative, press 9. 1:45 CST. The Reagan's Combat Information Center is a hive of motion. On the radar wall, 10 fresh tracks light up, closing fast. Operators call bearings, but the picture flickers with ghosts. The commander makes the call anyway. Weapons free. Seconds matter. The first line of defense comes from the escorts. USS Chung Hoon, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, spits a salvo of standard missiles into the sky. Tubes cough, hatches slam, and contrails carve white scars over black water. Those interceptors buy second space for the carrier to launch more jets. Back on the Reagan, the flight deck is chaos, but trained chaos. Steam catapults fling FA-18EF Super Hornets into the dark, burners roaring. Pilots snap into formation, climbing toward the unknown. Each Hornet carries air-to-air missiles, ready to thin the wave. In jamming suites, EA-18G Growlers light up pods, pushing back against enemy radar with electronic noise. But the threats keep multiplying. Some tracks break high, others skim sea level. The Aegis combat system links with the cruiser's sensors to coordinate fire. It's like juggling knives in a storm. Each decision risks a gap. USS Antietam, the Ticonderoga-class cruiser, launches another ripple of standards, while close-in radars spin hunting leakers. Above, the Super Hornets find their first targets. Drones, fast and erratic. Missile streak. Detonations flash like fireworks. Some drones vanish mid-air. Others push through. Pilots report strange movements tracks that don't exist outside the scope. Cyber trickery mixes with steel, and every false contact risks wasting a missile. In the depths, the Virginia-class submarine slides silent, stalking enemy ships. Its mission: keep Chinese destroyers honest. If the surface fight goes bad, torpedoes are the ace in reserve. By 2, the horizon is alive with fire. Standards arc. Hornets dive and climb. Radar screens blink and lie. High above, an E-2D Hawkeye circles, fighting to stitch a clean picture. A Pate Ampere's Poseidon seeds sonobuoys off the beam, listening for a torpedo shot. In CIC, a data purge blanks the screens, then rebuilds the plot from trusted sensors. Every intercept feels like a guess between phantom and real, and still, the wave comes on. 2:20 CST. The first intercepts thin the sky, but the fight is far from over. Several hostile drones slip past the missile shield, smaller and harder to hit. USS Chung-Hoon guns thunder, knocking down 2, but others break through. Sparks spray as fragments fall into the sea. The Reagan shifts a few degrees, angling its hull to narrow the target profile. Every move is calculated. Survival is geometry. Close-in defenses activate. Phalanx CIWS turrets whir, barrels spinning, spewing streams of tracer rounds. Bright red arcs stitch across the night, cutting down more drones. Still, 2 slip dangerously close. The crew braces. One detonates prematurely, shredded by fire. The other streaks toward the carrier before a last burst knocks it into the water. Jeers rise, but nobody relaxes. Overhead, growlers pump out more jamming, trying to peel back the electronic fog. Yet confusion lingers. Screens still show ghosts that don't exist. Sailors double-check bearings by voice, shouting across the combat deck. Old school methods in a digital fight. It buys clarity, but costs speed. Seconds are everything when missiles may follow drones. The pressure builds further. From the east, new signatures appear. Fast movers, maybe fighters, maybe decoys. From the west, surface contacts shift. Type 52D destroyers maneuvering into positions that look like a trap. The Reagan sits in the middle of an invisible vice, forced to fight blind while the enemy dictates tempo. Every officer knows. One mistake, one missed track, and $1 billion carrier could take a hit that changes the balance of the whole region. Down below, engineers purge systems again, scrubbing malware one circuit at a time. Sweat drips as they reset networks under battle conditions, racing to give the ship a clean picture. Above them, pilots fly by instinct, trusting wingmen more than radar. This is no longer just a skirmish, it's a contest of nerve. If defenses crack, the enemy wins more than a kill. They win the message that US shields can be pierced. And here's a challenge for you. If you think the US will hold the line under this pressure, hit 1" the comments. If you believe China's tactics are breaking through, press 9. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next battle update. 2:45 CST. Just as the crew begins to steady, the fight shifts again. Screens clear for a moment, then flood with new signatures smaller, faster, hugging the sea. These aren't the lumbering drones from earlier. They skim waves at near supersonic speed, nearly invisible against surface clutter. The first YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles are inbound. The twist is brutal. The cyber attack wasn't only to blind sensors, it opened the door for these missiles, slipping through confusion. By the time tracks are confirmed, the weapons are already inside the danger zone. Close-in weapons engage. The order snaps across decks. Reagan heels to port, crew bracing. Escorts pivot to shield her, firing interceptors in rapid sequence. Standard missiles rise, but every shot is a race against time. On deck, Super Hornets dive lower, desperate to thin the wave before it reaches the ships. Growlers jam guidance signals. Every second shaved could mean survival. Below, damage control teams ready hoses and seal bulkheads, braced for impact they hope never comes. The crew knows, if even one missile slips through, it can tear open the carrier, cripple flight ops, and kill hundreds. The horizon flares as intercepts score hits, but gaps remain. More missiles hug the sea, darting like predators too fast to swat. For the commander, the choice is stark. Commit the last layers of defense now, or hold them for what may come next. CIWS guns spin. Tomahawks sit unused. Submarines wait silently. Decisions made here cannot be undone. The Reagan's future hangs on seconds. Every eye in CIC fixed on twisting lines of radar, balancing fear with resolve. 3-5 CST. Knife range. The last YJ-18 punched through the outer net, skimming low. Alarms hammer. Sailors locked to stations. No time for long-range shots, only the final layer. SIS, engage! Phalanx turrets ignite, barrels whirring. Tracer streams rake the night. One missile bursts, then another. A third keeps coming, threading through arcs of fire. Reagan heals, spray sheets across the deck. Damage control crews kneel in passageways, ready. On the flight deck, controllers wave off low hornets. No landing, only fight. Pilots call bearings, voices tight. Concentrated fire blooms. Another warhead detonates. Steel shudders. The last streaks in seconds left. CIWS roars. Tracers stitch the dark. The missile shudders and breaks apart. Debris slams the sea. The ship shakes. A breath of silence follows. Above, Super Hornets bank hard, swatting the final drones. Growlers jam until pods run hot. The E-2D tightens its orbit, stitching a cleaner plot. Below, sailors exhale. They are still here. 312. Bridge orders a hard reset. Purge, rekey, fall back to voice. Talkers on sound-powered phones relay bearings, steady and clear. On the cruiser, teams hold tracks manually, trusting only clean returns. It isn't pretty, but it works. Farther west, the Virginia-class sub reports turbine noise and a single hull-ping enemy escorts shifting. The ambush isn't over. Flight leads push the cap outward, ready for late leakers. On deck, crews reload drums and swap barrels. The air tastes of cordite and salt. On the starboard catwalk, shrapnel scars show under harsh lights, pocked paint, a bent rail, a radar shroud with holes. Medics tape a sprained wrist, hand out water, and move again. The ship lives, but the margin is thin, and everyone knows it. Fuel states tick down across the cap. A tanker cycle spins up. A pair of Hornets peel off to refuel, then rush back into the stack. Every orbit must be covered while the picture rebuilds. In machinery spaces, turbines strain at combat power. Electricians ride the load, praying the next spike won't trip a breaker. Now it's your call. If you believe the US truly held the line here, press 1 the comments. If you think China came closer than ever to breaking through, press 9 and subscribe so you're here for the final reckoning. 340 CST. The sea falls quiet. Smoke drifts over the Reagan. Its deck scarred but still intact. Crews sweep wreckage into the dark water, boots crunching on shrapnel. For the moment, the carrier lives. Yet the cost is more than steel. Hours of exhaustion hang heavy on every face. Each sailor knows how close they came. Word spreads fast. Satellite links buzz, reporting the encounter to Washington, Tokyo, and Manila. For US leaders, the headline is survival. America's shield held. But the subtext is harder. China pushed through layers of defense, combined cyber warfare with salvos, and nearly cracked a nuclear carrier. Allies cheer the defense, yet whisper about the strain. Enemies note where the armor bent. For the PLA Navy, the lesson is clear. They forced the Reagan into chaos and made her fire expensive interceptors at cheap drones and decoys. Even without a kill, the message lands. They can reach close, they can impose costs, and next time they may press further. Strategically, the night proves both sides are locked in a spiral. Each adapts, each probes for the weakness of the other. For the US, the victory is real but fragile, winning on the scoreboard, bleeding in the margins. For China, the loss is temporary. The test was valuable. By dawn, the Reagan resumes flight ops. Hornets launch again, wings glinting in morning light, a signal that the carrier is unbroken. But in CIC, officers mark every glitch, every second of confusion. The fight exposed gaps that cannot be ignored. The message to the world is mixed. The sea lanes remain open, US resolve intact. Yet the balance is shifting, defense is costly, offense is getting cheaper. Allies watch closely, wondering how many nights like this America can endure. Rivals plan their next strike. So now we turn it to you. If you believe tonight's survival proves America still holds the line, press 1 inch the comments. If you think China's attack revealed cracks that could change the future, press 9 and subscribe, because the next battle will decide even more. The South China Sea, the 19th of July, 2025. The ocean looked calm, almost serene, as if time itself had frozen. But on board the USS Argonne, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, the illusion shattered in an instant. Radar operators, eyes locked on their glowing screens, picked up a sudden, violent shift. A Chinese Type 052D destroyer, hull number 174, surged from 18 knots to 30 inch under 90 seconds. That wasn't routine. That was aggression. Beijing had flipped the switch. The order was clear: intercept the Americans, force a reaction, and broadcast the confrontation for the world to see. But there was one problem. The Americans weren't trespassing. The strike group was sailing 185 nautical miles from Chinese shores, international waters, where $3.4 trillion in global trade flowed every single year. And the Argonne wasn't alone. She was part of the USS Ronald Reagan Strike Group, a shield built to protect the world's sea lanes. Destroyers, cruisers, and the mighty aircraft carrier itself formed a moving fortress, bristling with power. At 8:34, radar confirmed the worst. The Chinese destroyer was locked on a collision vector, weapons range in just 14 minutes. Below Argonne's decks, 122 vertical launch cells waited a storm of SM-6 missiles ready to be unleashed at a moment's notice. But silence filled the Combat Information Center. On the flight deck of the Ronald Reagan, operations shifted like a machine built for war. Aircraft were armed, destroyers repositioned, and nearby merchant ships carrying billions in cargo looked to one thing for protection: the resolve of the U.S. Navy. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was provocation. And the world was about to witness the first move in a dangerous game. 8:37 hours. The tactical picture snapped into razor focus. Argonne's SPY-1 radar painted the Type 052D with unforgiving clarity hull lines, weapons mounts, even the jitter of her fiery control arrays. Bearing steady, speed high. Time to weapons range. Under 14 minutes if she kept her nose hot. If the destroyer fired YJ-1818 second, sea skimming and cruel, they closed the last stretch in less than 4 minutes. Argonne's kill chain was already built: sensors, processors, shooters, every link humming. The captain asked one word: intent? The tactical action officer didn't blink. Aggressive vector. Recommend general quarters. The captain's reply was colder than steel. Hold. Measure their nerve. Around the flagship, the strike group shifted like gears engaging. On Ronald Reagan's deck, yellow shirts choreographed aircraft with fingertip precision. Screws and McFall slid outward, forming a hard, overlapping shield. Overhead, an E-2D Hawkeye traced lazy circles at 25,000 feet, its radar combing the sky and sea into a single living map. New contacts bloomed. Multiple fast movers pushing south off the Chinese carrier Shandong. JGO-15 second heavy, hungry, and climbing too slow. Ski jump launches meant trade-offs. Less fuel, fewer weapons, shorter legs. Still, they came. The first move in a Madiver confrontation. Below the waves, something worse. Argonne's sonar team rode the acoustic layer and caught a smear of noise. A diesel-L electric boat, likely a Type 039, moving too fast, too loud. At 80 nautical miles, she was already bleeding stealth, her signature smearing across the waterfall display like a confession. 41 merchant ships threaded the sea lanes nearby, hulls stacked with billions in cargo. The Americans adjusted their screen to keep commerce inside the umbrella. Steel guardians shepherding steel fortresses. Inside CIC, voices stayed level. Sectors assigned. Tracks correlated. Link 16 stitched every cockpit and bridge into one shared brain. No bravado, no wasted words. Just a calm that felt like a drawn bow. Across the line, the Chinese formation huddled tight line of sight calls, legacy radars, a fractured picture, predictable arcs, predictable mistakes. The clock kept eating distance. 13 minutes. 12. 11. The Air Boss cleared early launches. Cat crews snapped into rhythm. Engines spooled. The storm was building quiet, disciplined, inevitable. 8:49 hours. The sky over the South China Sea hardened into a layered chessboard. AE-18E Super Hornets surged in. AESA cones sweeping arcs of air and sea. Link 16 fused cockpits and bridges into one mind. What one jet saw, all saw. Latency shaved to the bone. Then the quiet killers arrived. EAE-18 Graham Growlers slid on cold air. Alabama Q-99 pods whispering electricity. Chinese scopes flooded with ghosts. 4 contacts became 12, then 20, then none. Range 8 gate tricks and sidelobe spoofs multiplied targets, and JCHAS 15 pilots chased phantoms through static. Their locks slipped, their comms stuttered. The Americans spoke less and knew more. Altitude stacked like armor. High cover at 35,000 feet. Hunters at 25,000. Night fighters stalking at 15,000. Overlapping arcs erased blind spots and boxed the battle space. Across the line, the Chinese formation bunched tight, bound to line-of-sight calls and aging glass. Predictable vectors in a digital war invite a single end. Below, the ocean yielded a louder truth. A Type 039 crept too fast, too shallow. At 8:51, she raised her snorkel to breathe, and the sea answered with a shout. On Argonne's waterfall display, the acoustic fingerprint bloomed range 15,000 yards. Course imperfect, fate precarious. If the balloon went up, an ASROC would be on her in seconds. Warhead and water hammer ending the guesswork. Merchant traffic threaded the lane's 41 ships, billions in cargo, drawn safer under the American umbrella as the screen flexed and tightened. Controllers aboard Reagan parceled intercepts, fuel states, and time gone station with metronomic cadence. The battle now spanned air, surface, undersea, and the invisible spectrum. On each axis, initiative sat squarely with the strike group. The Chinese had sailed out to stage a spectacle. Instead, they found a storm already shaped around them, a fight defined by bandwidth, patience, and posture, rather than noise. The cameras would capture jets and wakes. The truth was numbers, timing, and trust. If disciplined networks dominate, press 1. If raw aggression can still break through, press 9. Comment your number and subscribe to stay on station. 8:56 hours. Inside Argonne CIC, the calm thinned to a blade. Console glow washed across focused faces as the plot tightened. The Chinese destroyer had shifted from broad search to fire control track. It wasn't subtle. It was the digital equivalent of pressing a loaded pistol to the carrier's chest. Beams pinned Ronald Reagan in a cold, invisible grip. Firing solutions rolled and refreshed. SM-2 and SM-6 assignments populated in crisp columns. Operators called bearings and ranges in clipped voices, while recorders captured every microsecond of hostile lock. Frequency, pulse width, dwell time, doctrine held, hold fire, measure intent. Build the case. Do not give the first shot away. On deck, the carrier's rhythm never faltered. Ordnance crews moved with quiet economy. Yellow shirts carved pathways through jet exhaust and heat haze. Out on the ring, McFarland screws tightened the wall, their Aegis umbrellas overlapping until the sea itself felt roofed in steel. Then the snap. A J-15 broke formation, rolled and dove across a Hornet's nose in a thumping pass meant to rattle nerves and cameras. The American pilot didn't flinch. He inverted, slid behind the intruder, and let the tone sing in his headset 3 clean seconds of lethal certainty. One squeeze and the sky would write a different story. He didn't pull. Restraint isn't the absence of power, it's mastery of it. The J-15 yanked away, gamble spent. In CIC, heartbeats slowed by will alone. The logbook gained another page of proof. Aggression documented, escalation contained. For sailors watching from catwalks and hatches, the lesson was tactile. Strength was the held shot, the recorded lock, the formation that never blinked. The ocean waited, vast and indifferent, as men and machines threaded a line thinner than a wake. Controllers updated fuel states, lanes for recovery, and traps for contingencies. The group breathed as one organism, sensors and steel, doctrine and discipline holding a door open for peace without stepping back from it. In that moment, who truly won? If you believe discipline under fire is real victory, press 1. If you think bold provocation should rule, press 9. Comment your choice and subscribe to follow the next move. 9:03 hours. The Chinese believed they had set the tempo. They hadn't. From the deep, dark water west of the standoff, a Virginia-class attack submarine began to rise. For 8 days, she had shadowed the Shandong strike group without a breath of giveaway noise, mapping bearings, fuel states, and routine like a patient hunter memorizing a heartbeat. Now she surfaced by choice. Inside 6 nautical miles of the Chinese carrier, the sight landed like a verdict. A 7,900-ton shape broke the skin of the sea, black hull sluiced with foam, sail glistening, hatches sealed and inscrutable. Tubes and missiles were not on display. They didn't have to be. Presence did the speaking. For less than 2 minutes, she stayed there long enough for bridge wings to raise binoculars, long enough for phones to capture frames that would never make official news, long enough to make every officer understand the past week in a single breath. No radio call, no signal lamp. The message was the quiet itself. We were always here. If this were war, you'd be gone already. On Shandong's flag bridge, the calculus shifted. Their destroyer had painted an American carrier with fire control energy and found only documentation in return. Their JO-15 second had rushed south with cameras watching, burning fuel to climb, and losing options with every minute. Their diesel-electric boat had snorkeled under a watchful ear and been held at arm's length by people who never needed to announce it. And now this proof of proximity, proof of patience, proof of overmatch expressed without a trigger pull. Above, the JO-15 second circled on fumes. Skyjump launches had bought takeoff and sold endurance, and the bill had come due. They turned away one by one, defensive now, falling back toward the carrier's orbit. Across the box, Super Hornets held altitude blocks and tidy geometry, weapons safed, tone disciplined, unbroken. Merchant traffic threaded the lanes as the American screen flexed to keep commerce beneath its canopy. The carrier's cycle ticked on recovery's plan. Fuel ladders briefed, traps scheduled, while the submarine eased her ballast and slid back under the glare. Absence became louder than any broadside. By 9:23, Shandong herself began to withdraw. The official line would read, "Exercise complete." The unwritten truth traveled farther. In a contest measured by nerve, timing, and information, the quiet move had ended the argument. 9:30 hours. The sea lane stretched wide again, but no one aboard mistook it for peace. Calm after tension is never the same as calm before it. The Shandong strike group turned north, throttles eased, official channels declaring their exercise concluded. Yet for every sailor who had seen the spectacle unfold, the truth needed no communique. They had been watched, outflown, outmaneuvered, and outweighted. No missile had left its cell. No trigger had been pulled. Yet the ledger was heavy with evidence. Screens full of fire control locks, sonar tracks of a diesel boat gasping for air, radar plots of jets clawing sky with empty tanks, and above all, the memory of a submarine rising from nowhere only to vanish again. All recorded, all undeniable. The Americans had not simply shown weapons. They had shown discipline, the calm to absorb provocation, the patience to let the world see, the restraint to demonstrate strength without fire. This was not weakness. It was overmatch, disguised as stillness, dominance written in withheld shots, confidence spoken in silence. For the 41 merchant ships that crossed that corridor, carrying billions in trade, the difference was felt in cargo delivered, crews unshaken, schedules unbroken. For the region, the message was sharper. Stability does not come from bluster, but from the quiet edge of readiness. By day's end, the waters looked empty. But emptiness deceives. Somewhere under that expanse, attack boats moved unheard. Somewhere above, surveillance aircraft carved patient loops. Somewhere across the fleet, operators logged each second into archives that would later brief policymakers and allies alike. The record mattered. The restraint mattered more. Superpower is not measured by volume. It is measured by how quietly you can win without firing a shot. The United States Navy had preserved peace not by stepping back, but by standing steady, holding open the door without letting it swing. And in that silence lies the lesson. True strength is not in the noise of weapons, but in the discipline to control them.